Hi, I'm Eli Acheson-Elmassry. I'm an artist and teacher as well, and welcome to my studio. So often I find that when I'm doing exhibitions or when I'm out and about and people ask me, what do you do? And I say I'm an artist, and I have so many people say, oh, I wish I could make art, I wish I could draw, but I'm hopeless, or I don't know how to get started, I wish I was creative. And I hear this really often, people saying, do you do this, do you do that, in terms of teaching watercolours or oil painting. And so, I've been teaching a lot over the years, and I've taught people who from 11 years old, children at school, through 11-year-olds, right through to 18, and then on honours degree courses, in fine art courses, and all the way through up to people in their 80s, adult education, and complete beginners. So I've started a video series now to hopefully help you get started with art. If you are a complete beginner and always fancied trying something out, but maybe you didn't know where to start. Also, if you already have some skills, I may be offering you some new ideas to think outside of the box and maybe develop those skills in some technical areas, but also to think more creatively in general, because you know what, we're all born creative, and it's amazing how many people I meet think that they're not imaginative or that they're not creative, but it could be that somewhere along their path that they just pulled those blinds down on themselves and felt restricted in some way, felt that they weren't good enough, or they didn't have the opportunity in their lives to be exposed to art and experimentation and feel free to go through the process of making mistakes and tap into their creative energies. And when I say we're all creative, it's like, well, we all learned to speak the language that we're speaking now, and maybe it took a whole year of even listening to English language around you, or whatever language was your mother tongue, that you listened to it for a whole year before you even said your first words. And maybe it wasn't as if somebody then just came up to you and said, what, you only said mum? You only said dad? What is that? What about the rest of the language? It's like you built it up in baby steps, and hopefully people were very kind and encouraging to you along the way, but that hasn't always been people's art experience. And people, I find, have become disheartened, or they think they have to get things right all the time and are a bit scared of making mistakes. So I'm here hopefully to help lift those blinds a little bit and let the light in and help you to kind of just get that creativity going again, and feed yourself, because it is a kind of a food, I think, to be able to express yourself, to express what you feel inside, to express what you're thinking, what you're going through, and to speak from your soul is something that has been integral and vital to my life. And also you kind of respond to what's around you. So at the same time as you may find that you come up with some creative brilliance at some date, or some picture that other people can also enjoy and participate in, the other thing is it's an important nourishment for yourself. This is very much my own feeling about it. So as I go through a course of videos, hopefully I'll be able to share with you in some different levels my own approaches and my kind of philosophy of life, I suppose, and also combining it with specific techniques. But just to get started for today, I'm going to give you some 5 really simple tips on how to get started in art, or how to start getting creative ideas, just how to go about the process. And as I say, this is the starting video, so if you like it or you've got any responses or comments, please do let me know, and please comment below where you can, or you can direct message me, DM me on Instagram. I'm Eli Acheson-Elmassry. So where do we start? Please, the first place to start is, please answer your own need to be creative. Answer that need in yourself to be creative. If you're struggling for time in your day, life is busy, you've got a full-time job, maybe you've also got kids and lots of other responsibilities. So the first thing is, how can you make that time? How can you make that time? So for example, it could be that if you're busy at home and you do a lot of chores, and you say, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that, and then I have to do this, and maybe you can let something go. Maybe you can just set something aside and say, okay, well, I've done a lot of I have to's already today, and there's going to be a lot of I've got to's later on, but maybe right now I don't have to vacuum that room. Maybe right now I don't have to clean the bathroom. I will just take this time now for me. I'll take this 15 minutes, I'll take this 20 minutes, and make a little space for myself, okay? Maybe you're commuting to work, maybe you sit on a train and maybe usually you read a book or you look at a newspaper or you sit listening to music. Well, there is some time for you to be creative in a way. Maybe you're waiting at a bus stop for a bus to college or something like that, and you've got a little bit of time. So okay, you're on the school run, you've got 5 minutes before collection. So whatever you've got, just see where you can shift things around a little bit and say, do I really need to do that right now? Or can I take this important time for myself, and give yourself that gift of time, okay? So once you've got the time, you need to be ready. And be ready with what? Okay, well, my first suggestion, and this is my tip number 2, is to maybe get yourself a little book like this, or a notebook. Now this is what we call an A6 size pad, and it's really good and versatile. It's a spiral bound pad, so you can just, fold it out. And because it's nice and firm, you see, even if you're riding on public transport or something, you can just have it on your lap like that, and you can kind of work into it. So you can fold the pages back, and also this paper is quite firm and solid. It's nice drawing paper, so you can use wet media on this. Media is kind of what the term we use for anything you're working with, basically. So media can be paint, can be ink, can be any sort of water. So you could be working in pencils on this, but you can also work wet, and I'll show you a little bit more about that later on. And also it's got perforated edges there, so if you want to, you can just tear that out later on and put it up on a wall somewhere in a space, so that maybe it's something you decide you want to work from later on, even if it's you're generating ideas for something in advertising, something in another creative industry, or something to do with your business. You've got a little pad that's all your own, okay? So that's where you start. So be ready. That's the first thing, is to have some kind of a surface and the next thing is anything to make marks with, okay? If you're in an office environment, well, probably there's pens around you. If you're on a lunch break, there may be some pens right now, today, you can get started. And otherwise, you might like to get a hold of some coloured pencils. I have a lot of these around the house. And the other thing I'd say, is, wherever you are, whatever your environment you're in, whether you're based at home, you're based at work, you're travelling, you're commuting around, make it easy for yourself to get a hold of materials, so you're not looking around going, oh, where's my art stuff? It's always there. So I've got mugs of these, around the house. You can have them by the bed, you can have them I have them on the kitchen table where I eat, so sometimes, I'm just like doing a little bit of something, while I'm eating. You could watch telly, you could do this, you could go on social media, you could do this, right? Or you could even have these in the bathroom, sitting on the toilet, you've got a bit of time maybe. So, get yourself something like that. It doesn't have to be a full set, but it can be, because this is really juicy. Or you could just be, starting off with pencils, but maybe, you just try something a bit unusual to start off with, something you maybe haven't tried before. It doesn't have to be just a regular kind of pencil that you used in school. Okay, so that's the thing, be ready. And if you're on that school run, if you're commuting, get a pencil case and have a pencil case with you, and it's just right there, and it's always in the car, okay, or it's always in your briefcase and always in your backpack, and you've just got it there. It's really, really easy for you. So that really helps you just kind of, if it's mobile, if it's there, it's just like carrying a phone or something. It's just with you, and it becomes, as an artist, as a creative thinker, it just becomes second nature to have something. The other thing is, like, have pockets. I have like trousers with deep, loose pockets, so I'm always like got pens, and I've got maybe I haven't got a book in there, but I've got a pen, I've got something I can just take some notes with. And as I do these videos, I will take you through lots of different tips on sketching, on getting different, generating different creative ideas. So that's number 2, is be ready, okay? And the third thing is, when you are ready and you're ready to start, just doodle, just pick up anything and just doodle something. And it could be that, you just start off with, you're not really looking at anything, you're not really thinking at anything, as you do when you doodle. Maybe you've got, cool weighting, you'll do this very naturally and spontaneously. Well, maybe it's just a bit bigger, maybe it's just in different colours. And all I'm doing here is I just find I'm sort of creating some different triangles. And then you ask yourself the question, what if I make as many triangles on this page as possible? What if I take one of those triangles and I fill it with circles? How many circles can I get into it? And you start to ask yourself this question, what if you begin to explore? You know, you begin to explore, you begin to experiment, and there's no judgment here. There's no right or wrong. There isn't, there can't be. There can't be, because this is just coming out of you. And you know, what is art except giant doodles? You know, maybe there's been a lot more development, but you know, starting things off, they may come in these very loose forms to begin with. So, you know, I'm just working there with some colour, and so ask yourself, what happens if when you're doodling? And that's my tip number 3. So number 4 can be, instead of maybe just doing a doodle that's just coming out of imagination or just kind of automatically coming, you can actually sketch something, you know, sketch something that is in front of you, and it can be anything. And wherever you are, if there's stuff around you, you can sketch. Now, you know, if you're a bit self-conscious about, you know, if you're in a car on a school run, it can be easy. You're sitting there, you know, it doesn't matter, nobody's looking at you anyway. But if you're a bit self-conscious and if you're on a tube, for example, or you're on the bus, then, you know, you can just have this on the lap, and you could just draw your own foot, right? You could just do something on yourself. You don't have to be looking at other people necessarily. You don't have to be, if you feel a little bit, you know, shy about doing that environment, you could just do, I've got my thumb there, I'm going to draw my thumb, okay? I'm just going to observe my thumb, and, you know, as I make more videos, I'm going to give some, you know, some really clear tips on on drawing skills. You know, a lot of people are doing these kinds of, you know, technical stuff though, so I'm gonna add in some other sort of material to my content. But you know, the first thing I would just say about sketching is, you see it's loads bigger. So I'm enlarging it, that's okay, there's no judgment, and I'm just observing. Now, the one little tip I will give you just to get you started is, when you're sketching something, sketching for the first time, what you want to do when you're observing is to make sure you look at your paper 50-50 with the thing that you look at, with the time that you look at the object. So you're kind of going in between. You look, you know, 50% on the thumb, 50% on the paper, and your eyes going in between them. So you kind of marrying them together, like joining them together in that time. And the great thing about doing something like this is, if it was my thumb and I had a journey to work and then I had a journey from work, I could come back to the same object. So if you really kind of got a bit interested in this, then you could just come back to the object later on. The shadow on there is looking pretty interesting, and you could do another one, you know, maybe later you come back and you think, well, actually maybe I'll do that finger instead, and you do something up there. Maybe it's a different size, it really doesn't matter. All you're doing is you're beginning to tune into getting that creative flow coming out of side of yourself, and also beginning to observe more what's going on around you, because we're all looking at what's going on around us, but there's so much that we don't notice. There's so much that we don't notice until we really start to stop and look. And it's amazing how, you know, so much of drawing becomes like a kind of sort of a homage, I suppose, in a way. It's like you begin to appreciate what it is you're looking at in maybe a whole new way. So anyway, so that's another way, just to observe what's around you, just doing a little bit of sketching, get started, experiment. And the other tip is, maybe don't use a rubber. You know, don't take any rubbers with you, don't take any erasers with you, you know. I'm going to talk about that as well in another video, but we don't want to use those right now, okay? We don't want to use those right now. The important thing is to feel free, okay? To feel free to play with what you've got in front of you, okay? So that's the tip number 4, is to sketch something. And then the next thing is to, perhaps you might like to try and, you know, play around with a new media, okay? Play around with something that you haven't used before in a drawing. Now, I'm going to show you these pencils. I mentioned them earlier. These are actually watercolour pencils, and I was really keen on advocating these to my students when I was teaching in schools and colleges, because they are just so versatile. So I was using a bit of pencil there, but you know, if I just do a bit of colouring in, most of you are probably familiar with these, maybe not very excited about them. I've got, but these are watercolour pencils. So what that means is that they dissolve in water. So if you can get yourself a jam jar of water and a paintbrush at some point, if you like, you can actually turn that drawing into a painting. And the colours blend together. The one I was working with earlier, one I was drawing with earlier actually is also a watercolour pencil. Now, the ones that I've got a Caran d'Ache, which is lovely and it's quite soft and smooth on the paper. I've also got Rexall Derwent watercolour, and I've got quite a few Faber-Castell ones as well, which they've all got slightly different feel, you know, and it's nice when you're drawing to start getting the feeling of whatever it is that you're working, the feel of the drawing tool and the feel of the paper, and begin to sense, you know, begin to be aware of those feelings that in the textures that you're creating and in the tools that you're using. So this is just a really lovely media. So maybe you're out sketching, or you're at work and you do a bit, or you're on the train and you do a bit, and then if you've got a little bit more time in the evening or before bed, you can just play around a little bit more with it. Maybe it turns into something, maybe it turns into a pattern for something, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's just, you know, that's just what you did today, okay? And it's just the beginning of a path to somewhere else. So those are my 5 tips to get you started with creative ideas and to get you started in art. So feel free, explore and play, and remember that you're not only a human being, you're actually a creative being. So please let me know what you think, and I'd love to help you if you have any ideas or suggestions. Maybe there's something I can help you with. Enjoy creating, and thank you very much for watching.